Alright, hello everybody, welcome back to the collective where this video is really late, but it's for good reason. I am Salvador and this is Sleep Token. I need to do this up a bit more. This is Sleep Token, Take Me Back to Eden. Now, this past 2 weeks has been really bad, really stressful. Lots of stuff happening, so I said on the last video I have this out like pretty immediately. Nope, it's like 3 weeks almost. Life is like that, but that's good though. The reason why that's good is because, and there's a benefit to my ADHD and my laziness and all the stuff I got to deal with in my personal life. Because when an album first gets released and I don't review it right away, that gives me time to digest it, listen to it on my own time, so it's not rushed, and I can pay attention more and soak it in more, and not be distracted by other things. And also, I watch a lot of things like other reviews, reaction videos, etc., and through a lot of different things, I learn a lot of things about the band and the album that I would not have known without them bringing it up or something like that. Because I don't really do a lot of research into albums, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Let's say, to give an example, right? Tool's Lateralus, right? And this is a weird place to start, but hold on for a second. There's a lot to talk about anyways with this album, but like when it comes to Tool's Lateralus, right? And I will say this band does get compared to Tool sometimes. I've seen it a couple times, which is, at least for me, a really big compliment. Really big compliment indeed. When it comes to Lateralis, the album by Tool, it's doing a lot of cool things, like, in theory, music theory, or, whatever, they're writing, concepts, with math and all that kind of stuff. But that's not and all those things, although those things are really amazing and are really cool and bring the album together in a way, those are not the reasons why it's good. Those are just little, extra cherries on top, if you will. And albums that have to shove that kind of stuff in your face, to be like, see, we're doing cool things, right? That's not exactly great. But when an album does something great and is not shoved in your face and just by itself with no context sounds really good, that's how you know you got something special. And that's what Sleep Token does really well. And before I get into the album really quick, I do want to say that there's a lot of people that are new to Sleep Token because right now they are blowing up, and I thought they were blowing up a while ago. I've been listening to them since Sundowning, which is 3 albums ago, which we'll get into later, is the perfect time to listen to these guys, kind of. And so there's a lot of people new to this band, so I do want to get some, especially at the beginning, I do want to give some context to what they're doing and some of the stuff they are not representing, but some of the things that they're doing in the music, outside of the music, that's related to the music, blah blah blah, etc. Most of what Sleep Token does is the main guy, Vessel. He's a singer, he's a producer, he plays everything but the drums, I believe. And then on tour, he has other people do the stuff, and he sings, and everyone else kind of does instruments, And then I believe he has someone else do the drums for him on the album, I think. But he is where most of everything comes from. It's all, it's kind of like how I attribute Michael Girard to Swans. He's like the main brain of everything. He's where all the genre blends come in, for Sleep Talk I'm talking about now. He's where all the genre blends come in, all the subject matter comes in, the lyrics. He's like the main brain of the whole band, from what I understand. The imagery, all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of things to do in the background, right? That makes this band really cool. And I'll get into the album in a second, I promise. When it comes to the actual album art, especially on the singles, right? Well, I'll say first way, there's actually, in a funny way, there's lore to this band, to really real, to be funny. Not to be funny. Train of thought is derailing. There is a lot of lore to this band, and from certain songs calling back to other songs, runes and little languages, in their logo, camera. Nope, or whatever. Whatever. Sleep Token, band logo, and the runes in the bottom of the thing. Wow, this sucks. Whatever. Point being, there's a lot of stuff on in the background. There's a lot of puzzles and a lot of ARG kind of stuff going on, which I honestly find really cool. And that builds a lot of perspective on what the songs are about, because if you go into the album not knowing most of the stuff, then the lyrics can come across very I don't know what word I would choose. Not incel, but they're very like sad boy, goth poetry-esque sometimes. There are two wolves inside me kind of thing. That is not what this is. If you know some of the other context, it makes a whole different story. And some of that context is, some of the lore of this band is, there is a deity called Sleep, and their music are tokens for this deity called Sleep. And their past 3 albums, their only 3 main albums, which is Sundowning, This Place Will Be Your Tomb, and this one, Taking Me Back to Eden, are all one story. And actually, the first track, The Night Does Not Belong to God, from Sundowning, and the last track here, Elucid, will loop back to each other. And as it happens to be, those 2 songs are some of my favorite songs in their entire discography, probably my top 2, so it's a nice extra little treat for me. But admittedly, I've not listened to the entirety of Sundowning. I did once years ago. I've forgotten most of it, but I know a couple of songs. The good ones I remember. Like Night was The Offering. Night Does Not Belong to God. A couple others like Higher. I have not listened to the second one, although I do know Alkaline and the first track off of it. That's it. So I don't have the full context either, but I have enough context where I can judge this, pretty good. And a lot of people also, have problems with the mixing. I've heard them compared to Imagine Dragons, saying that the drums are very, I think compressed was the word. People are saying that it sounds very large, and rather than try to write something that sounds large, they are using production techniques to force it to sound large, like Imagine Dragons does. I do not see this as a problem. Not to say they're not doing this. I don't think it's obvious enough towards a problem. It doesn't stick out and anything like that. There is one track way later on the album. I think it's Rain, where it has these almost tribal, they're very echoey drums, like Imagine Dragons' Believer, that song. They're very much like that. And yeah, it sticks out, and it's not really, desirable. But in all other aspects, it's not like a sore thumb. The drums are compressed, but that's not exactly a problem, because you're not having the drums compressed very loudly on top of quieter stuff. They're always over top the louder guitars, so it doesn't stand out. It doesn't feel like a problem. And also, as well as that, lose my train of thought again. My train of thought is derailed. I don't think anyone has survived after that train. Whatever. Point being, album, I've talked long enough about context that is needed, not needed, whatever. I do think this is Sleep Tokens, from what I've heard, their strongest album to date by far. The first track, Chokehold, does an amazing job at setting up. There's a nice build. It feels like an opener to something epic. It's kind of not intimidating. What's the word? It's it's kind of, it's leading up to something. It's very wow, I suck at this all of a sudden. This is what happens when you take 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off. Point being, it's setting up. It sounds very big. Drop is great. Melodies are great. Oh, right. So fucking ADD brain. Sorry, remember I was gonna say earlier. ADD brain. Mixing, right. When it comes to the Imagine Dragons mixing, what you have to take into account is where you're listening to the album and what context you're listening to it. Actually, I was watching Brad tasting music just before I was doing this review. He was reviewing, reacting and reviewing to Muse, Absolution, I think that's the album, and he's streaming it through Spotify, through releases of headphones, and he's complaining about mixing. Someone brings up, hey, listen to it through your phone. They mixed it in a way that it sounds better through a phone speaker because the average Muse fan is just using phone speakers. They're not sitting down in a studio. And he did it on the video, and it did sound better. And I feel like that's a thing here. A lot of from what I've seen, from people reviewing the album, who are just music reviewers, people who are reviewing the album that have some kind of experience in like composing, engineering, whatever it may be, and then people who are just casual listeners, there is a distinct difference. The people who are just reviewing the album to review it, and who aren't really they're just people, like Brad Taste in music, or Anthony Fantano. They don't exactly have experience in making an album or engineering, so to speak. I won't say making an album, but they don't have a lot of engineering stuff or any background stuff in composing that much. They complain about the mixing. They complain about it sounding it. They complain about the compositions, sounding very overly dramatic and all that kind of stuff. And when it comes to people who have experience, they really praise the mixing on how it changes a lot. And like there are some songs, like the second song, The Summoning, I think it's The Summoning, Ascensionism, where there's, whatever, across the whole album, there's parts with auto-tune and not auto-tune. And when this guy, Vessel, is an amazing singer. He really is. That's one thing I will say. He's definitely an amazing singer. So he can sing. So when they use auto-tune, it's for a style. Like, that's what they do it for. There are some times where the drums are mixed different, where the vocals are mixed different, the album between the softer parts and the heavier parts change engineering styles, which is a very, cool thing. And that's people who are just casual listeners, people who aren't big music snobs, people who aren't experienced in anything from composing to arrangements or anything, they all love it because they're not paying attention to finer details. Like the track Granite, I believe. No, Aqua Regia. The track Aqua Regia has these very hip hoppy a samples in the background that stick out if you're listening for it. If you're not paying attention to it, you might not even notice it. I feel like for me, they stick out a bit too much. They're too attention grabbing, depending on what you're listening on. Headphones are very in your face. But you have to pay attention to where you're listening to the album and what context you're listening to it in. Because at least I find this is the only album I've seen it where just that alone, it changes the opinions so drastically, like incredibly so. There's a book. I know I'm really talking about the album. I'm sorry. I did not really write scripts. There's a lot of things I want to talk about. There's so much to talk about with this album, this band, and with just the whole situation with Sleep Token. They're polarizing everything going on. But there's a book by David Byrne, the frontman of Talking Heads, that I think it's called How Music's Made, and he's talking about how throughout history, music is made for the context, for the place it's being played in. Like when back when we had, let's say classical music, right? It was a lot of syncopation. Everyone's doing the same bit at the same time, and not a lot of chord changes because they're very reverby, echoey, hollow, so it'll sound all messy, right? Same thing with arena rock, It's simple because they want to be commercial, but also in arenas, if you do a bunch of crazy, complicated stuff, you're not going to hear it. It's going to come out all muffled. In Africa, right, they have a lot more complex rhythms because they're outside, don't have reverb and stuff, so you hear all that complex stuff. When it comes to music nowadays, a lot of time, for certain types, there is an emphasis put on mixing in headphones because they know most people are going to be listening to it through cheaper headphones and not be listening to it through expensive ones or anything like that, right? Like Muse or whatever it might be, right? And I feel like, again, this album, that's part of why it's so polarized is because everyone's going to it with a different frame of mind. and that alone will change the entire experience, which I find incredibly fascinating from a psychological perspective, which I do some reading on that on my own time. But if I can, it's been 15 minutes. I'm going to talk about the actual album now. I apologize, but I do want to say all of that first, because this album is really good. I do think it's their strongest to date. I go saying Chokehold is an amazing, opener. The Summoning, has some great stuff. It has the very nice vocal. How does it start again? Either way, it has some good riffs in the start, good vocals. The drop is great. Although the one gripe I have with this kind of music, when it comes to gent, I don't like gent that much. It's not that I don't like the style, or that I think it's too heavy. I listen to heavier stuff. I listen to Strapping Young Lad and Gojira and stuff. It's just that the basis of music is on rhythm, right? Our brain looks for repetition. So even the progressive music I listen to, like Dream Theater, there's repetition there, and they have proper verses and choruses, and there's segments, and there's repeating themes and all that kind of stuff. When you throw like Dillinger Escape Plan at me, and they're just playing what seems to be random, it doesn't make any sense. It makes sense, sure, and it's very technical, and it's very you gotta be very talented to play that kind of stuff. It takes a lot of skill, But as a listener, when you're dropping, what seems like your time signatures into a blender, and just being like, oh sure, we'll play these 25 different ones in this 3-minute song. For a listener, it's not that great, In fact, the summoning has some of this, but not a lot. I do feel like most of the summoning is really great. The drummer is really good. The drummer is really good in this band, but again, I feel like sometimes when it comes to genty rhythms, it just feels like they're hitting random things, and I could also hit random things and give the same effect. You know what I mean? Either way, the summoning is a great song. The beat switch near the end is great. You have some heavier sections. You have some more ambient sections, or some riffy sections. You have, again, I don't want to say R&B-ish for the last bit of the summoning, but definitely it's very, very smooth. Granite definitely has some R&B elements into it, especially in certain vocal patterns Vessel uses. Granite is also great, and I like these songs like Granite and the last one, Elucid, and one or two others, I think, where they are more on the pop side, and they have this big grandiose feel to them. I think on the album these are the stronger songs. The next song, Aqua, Regia, again, up to this point they're batting 1,000. These are all great songs, very little to complain about, lots of variety. Aqua Regia has some amazing piano and kind of jazzy piano too. The chords are really, really, really nice. There's amazing. The mixing on the latter half of the piano solo is just really, really stellar. It's very magical and whimsical almost. When it comes to Vor, the next track, this is the first miss for me. This is what I was talking about before. When it comes to the genty rhythms, this whole song, for the most part, is very genty, and it's really hard to get into a groove when there's no groove, and kudos for the band. You gotta be very talented to pull this stuff off, but still, as a listener, it's just doesn't. It's not for me, man. But if you like the heavier stuff, I can see this being great. I'll also say this gives this offers a unique flavor to the album, so it's not unneeded. It's not bloated material that could be left off. It's not that. So I'll give it a pass. It's all right. Ascensionism. This is one of my favorite songs. One of them. Honestly, the first half of this album is incredibly loaded. Ascensionism is great. The entire thing. But again, they have some gentler rhythms, near the end, and I feel like this song could have been pretty much 10 to 10 amazing if they just would have spent a little time on the drum parts during the drops and not made them so random, because I feel the initial drop is amazing. Then when it drops again to a slower pace, it's even more amazing. But just changing the tempo, it does impact a lot, especially when you have this beautiful, serene piano stuff drop into metal stuff. But another half of like when you have a tempo change, yeah, that changes the entire thing. It feels like a drop, but half of that is also usually the riffs they use, right? If you have a very meaty, raw sounding riff, it really makes the drop that much more insane. Same with the drum parts. I feel like with this, they dropped, but didn't feel like it settled. It just kind of dropped, and it kind of, we're like, oh, okay, where exactly are we dropping to? And we're just kind of here. I feel like if that part had a tiny bit more effort into it, it'd be like so much more of an amazing song. But on its own, it's still really good. I just think it was so close to being like a super amazing song. Like they could release 5 more albums, and that could have been like they could release 5 more albums, and that probably still would have been the best song up until that point. That's how good this song could have been. The next one, Are You Really Okay? I will be honest, I listened to the first half of this album so many times, just because ADD drama. I kept not being able to get to the second half. I got the second half tonight, and man, again, I said, the album is really front loaded. The back half is really lacking. This song isn't that bad. It just passes for me. You got some cool guitar stuff. Some clean stuff. Vocal melodies are fine. I'm honestly forgetting how it sounds, kind of. But again, I've listened to it, 10,000 times. I like the first half of the album, but it's a good one. From what I remember, it's good. It's like a 6 or 7 out of 10. That one alone, it's pretty good. And we got The Apparition. This one, I don't even remember what it sounds like. Give me a second. I want to do this proper justice. Let me listen to some of these real quick. Yeah. So, sorry about that. So, Are You Really Okay? It's another one of those songs like Elucid, like Granite, where it starts off, kind of poppy with the piano and kind of expands as it goes on. I do think out of this album, at this point, it comes off as formulaic, and there's not really, again, I feel like with execution, if it was a little bit more time was put into it, it could have been a great song. But I feel like because it's lacking, it then comes across as formulaic because they have other songs already too, other ones that are way better. So now it comes across as just formulaic and stuff. But, on its own, it's not bad. It's just, if I were to choose between, Granite, Elucid, and this, I would definitely go to Elucid or Granite first. I would probably even remember this song. Then when it comes to The Apparition, I just listened to it and I can't remember what it sounds like. It's just not good. I'm sorry. It isn't. I want to get some respect to this. I'll try again. Hold on. I want to respect this. Right. If I'm thinking of the right song, because I was skimming through it, to be honest. It's late. It's almost 2 a.m. here. I've been doing this for more than half an hour already. Sorry for the long video. If I'm thinking of the right song, the rapping in this song feels more out of place than the other songs. I feel like for this and Are You Really Okay? And Do You Wish That You Loved Me? And Rain. For all these songs, I feel like if there's a little tiny bit more work put into it, they could have been way better songs. Like the vocal melodies are almost perfect. He'll do some weird turnaround or some weird deviation from the pattern that just kind of, it's weird because I can take these melodies, right, in my head, right, and I could change a couple notes and it's way better. For example, on the song Do You Wish That You Loved Me, which is abbreviated on the album. On the album it's called Dywtylm. There's a part in the chorus where it's like, bum 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 bum, and it's annoying, but like it's really annoying. But if you go up and like back down and do some rhythm stuff, bum 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 something like that, like that's already like way better, and it really annoys me mostly because "Do You Wish That You Loved Me," honestly, is probably one of, if they changed that just a little tiny bits there, one of the better songs on the album for sure, for sure. It is on one of the, it is on the poppier side too. I feel like even despite that, I feel like this song could be a lead single, and in certain circles it would be massive. This is definitely very again, the most modern pop this album has got to this point in the album and will ever get. Like this is like very pop, but I do think it's good. Like everything else is great. The soundscapes are great. The overall sonic sound of the track is great. The mixing is great. The melodies are great, except for just the one little part. It's so grating, and it could easily be so not grating. Oh man, it bugs me a lot, man. It really does, but it is good enough that it's good. I give it a pass. All kind of stuff. I'll probably listen to this here and there, but if I want to listen to Sleep Token, this is not going to be a first. Not going to be a first song I'm going to choose. Rain. I think this is the song I mentioned before, where it has the Imagine Dragons Believer drums that just don't feel in place at all. Take Me Back to Eden. This is where I was getting worried, right? Because this is an 8-minute song, one of the longer ones, and the other two were great. And again, I was saying to myself, man, this last half's been pretty rough. I hope this song helps bring it home. And it didn't. It really didn't. It was 8.5 minutes almost, and there was not one part I liked. I'm gonna be honest. There, it sounds for me like at this point it feels like they're padding out time, or maybe they have like a certain checklist of certain topics or things they want to have songs about. It was we'd have exactly 12 songs. They're all going to be about this thing going into it ahead of time. Maybe that's it. But this doesn't have to be there. It really doesn't. It just sounds like what they did on the rest of the album, copy and paste, except there's no good melodies and no good, rhythms or riffs. It's just there. And sure, it fits the album, but like it doesn't give it, at least Savor, at least that track gave a unique flavor to the album, and in the pacing of the album worked really well. But this one, it's just there, and there's not anything special about it. So like this one it's not good. Not this one, sorry. But I do like how on this track they referenced other tracks on the album lyrically near the end, which was really cool. And that brings me to Elucid, the last track, which is probably my favorite off the album at all. It's amazing. I love songs that sound like this, songs like like this, and The Night Does Not Belong to God. The first bit of Ascensionism. I just love songs that sound like that. I'm a sucker for those bittersweet kind of poppy piano kind of bass songs. I just don't know what it is. I just love it. Even if we go into like other music, right? Because I will say the piano on this song kind of sounds Elton Johnish a little bit, just a little bit. If you're going to other music, right? Like I love Dear You from Higurashi. That's also very similar. From Y to Y and the Vocaloid scene, that's also very familiar. By the way, I'm an anime person. That's why I bring up those. Those are the first ones that come to mind. But I just love that. I love these kind of sounding songs, right? And again, this is one of those songs where it starts off a bit quaint and a bit more simple, piano, and it expands and grows. And this one actually feels like it's ascending. It really does. Just with the composition, with the piano, the lyrics, everything. This actually does feel grand. Like it's a phenomenal closer. And this song references songs in the past token discography, like, the night does not belong to God and other things like that, right? I will also say that Dream Theater did a similar thing to this, where for I think the first 8 albums, minus the first one, no, the first 8 albums, they're all connected. Each album, one album would end with like either like a chord that was unfinished or something, or a sound effect. The next album would start with the same sound effect or the ending to that chord, etc., etc. And they did this for 8 albums. On the eighth album, they looped it back. So the first track on the album is I talked about it in the review of this album. It's Octavarium, and the first track, the long and short of it is the first track on Octavarium and the last track loop back to one another, and that ends a cycle because they want to do it for every album, right? So that ends that cycle, and the last song on that album is all about cycles and starting where you began, and that kind of not only caps off that album but caps off that almost story in a way, that story camera. And this is doing a similar thing where apparently, again, like I said earlier, the 3 major albums, Sundowning, This Place Will Be Your Tomb, and Tame Back to Eden are all one story, And it seems like there's a lot to unpack here because, there's the runes in different languages, there's all the monsters and stuff with the cover art. There's apparently coordinates hidden in certain codes and stuff, and like the single artwork. There is references in like the artwork to things, like and even like the main logo is some combination of some kind of Norse runes or something. There's a lot to unpack here. And even with the ARG stuff, right? They're doing similar. That also reminds me of Madion's Secret Selene EP. That also reminds me, because they all do similar things, of a game DDLC. And at this point, my train of thought has completely derailed, and there's no survivors. Point being, this album and this band is doing a lot of cool things, and even if you don't like the music per se, there is a lot to like about them in general. And they do have a very clear vision and a clear idea going into everything. Everything is incredibly thought out from the start. None of this seems to be just thrown on there for the sake of being on there. This all seems pretty planned. Nothing seems to be ill thought out, At least for this album, I definitely give it, I'm going to say like a 7. I want to give it high, I really do, but like I feel like the tracks that hold it back really hold it back, and the tracks that are really strong are super strong, like super duper strong. But yeah, this has already been a long video. I apologize. I'm not used to this. I'm ranting a while. It's also already late. I don't write scripts, etc., etc. But I will say that Sleep Token at this point is one of those bands that I'm going to follow like very closely. And they've earned that status for me. That doesn't seem like a lot to most people. I understand that, but like, I listen to a lot of music. I listen to a lot. I like, just out of songs that I like, I have playlists that are over 5,600 ish, right? I'm talking about from metal, rap, pop, even other random shit like lowercase, vaporwave, Vocaloid, soundtracks, a lot of stuff, right? Power electronics. And when I'm following artists, that means they've proved to me that they can be not only great and original, but on a consistent basis. Like I follow Swans, I follow Tool, I follow Journey, I follow Dream Theater, Metallica, because through multiple albums, almost non-stop, they've been great. And they may have a couple duds here and there, but overall, they are just amazing. And I do recommend, if you have the time, not only is this album worth your time, but their other albums as well are worth your time. In total, there's actually 2 EPs and these 3 albums. The EPs are called 1 and 2. So if you have the time, this entire band is a great rabbit hole to fall into. And I will say, when it comes to the ARG stuff as well, that's honestly a really great marketing technique as well. Because even if people don't like your music per se, you know, there's a lot of other people who are just in it for the mystery. Almost like we're too online. Weirdly enough, almost like Five Nights at Freddy's. There's some people that don't like the games, but they're in it just for the mystery and figuring out what the fuck is going on. This is the worst place to end it off, but I guess that's where I'm gonna end it off. It's been 35 minutes at least recording. I've been here for longer. I want to go to bed. I am tired. Thanks for your patience. I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks. Peace.